Okay, cool. We are live. Welcome everyone to the fourth episode of You Can. No, hold on. We gotta
Mhm.
not give up. Uh, I am Terrence Calaxon and my co-host.
Hey, I'm Gina Versa. Good to see you again, my friend.
Yeah, good to see you. It's been a while. I think I looked the last time we recorded was 3 months ago,
Yeah.
and it was basically talking about 3.0 plus 1.0 and how confusing it is.
It was a live. It was another live one too. It was
Yeah,
fun.
Um, and I like doing it live just because it's like, it kind of forces you to be a little more, on your feet.
Mhm.
Um, but today we have a new guest. His name is Nick, and I always want to say your last name, like
Let's hear it. Let's hear
the
it.
the various flavors of the candies I ate growing up and chips. So
Let's hear it. Come on. What is it? Shoot your shot.
I want to say limon.
It is indeed
All
Limon. Well
right.
done. I would have been a little disappointed if you didn't know how to say my last name, but it's fine. It's fine. Hi
Like
everyone. I'm Nick
I don't want to
Limon.
be like Lyman.
Ah, you did good. You done
Yeah,
good.
I would have
So
guessed that right.
I know
All
Nick
good.
through, I guess, sort of like a distant or extended family, I guess. And Nick's been kind of coming around some like family parties
I
for a
just
while
show up
now.
there,
Yeah,
just kind
he's
of,
coming
no
around.
one's kicked me out yet, so I just
Mhm.
come in, eat some food, and bounce.
But I guess, yeah, I guess Nick, you can explain how you and I know each other.
I am dating Terrence's cousin, and
Yeah.
I definitely had that like anxiety induced first meeting the family thing where I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I get along with anyone here. But then I discovered the room where everyone's playing Smash Brothers, and I was like, oh. Thank God I found my people. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think I kind of gelled with everyone there.
And I think uh, you and I kind of grew a little bit closer when I found that I think you were interning at the Attack at the time before you became producer there, and you
Mm-hmm.
were at E3 and you stopped by the booth, and I was like, "Oh, cool, what's up?" And that was pretty cool. And it was just at the time when I was still kind of getting to know a lot of other people in games media, so knowing that I kind of knew someone prior to other people I was meeting at like conventions and stuff, it was kind of comforting because I kind of didn't really know anyone. And I think when I saw you, were you holding a boom mic? I think you had
Yeah,
I think you.
I think I was running audio for a field shoot.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, it was my first E3 event, so it was like, oh man, I'm not an audio engineer at all, but I can sure hold the hell out of this boom mic.
Gene, you have experience working audio for productions, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I've done a few for God back when I was in college or doing like French short films. Yeah,
Mm.
I worked that or doing weddings. I did a lot of that. God.
Let me backtrack a bit because I forgot. The premise of this show is basically we have a guest on, we talk about their favorite episode of Evangelion, Ava, if you want, however
Mm.
pronunciation you want to go with. But then we kind of, we kind of change gears, and the second half we do talk about what is something in the spirit of Shinji that the guest wishes they could start accepting about themselves or learn to love about themselves. So it is kind of like a mental health light show because we're not professionals or anything. We just want to talk about what's on people's minds and in their hearts at the time. But anyway, so Nick, tell us what's your history with Evangelion. You told us prior to going live that you had a pretty interesting, I guess, introduction to
Well, I like to think it's interesting, but I guess we'll leave that up to the viewers and listeners
it.
to decipher for themselves. No, I hadn't watched Evangelion until I want to say I was a sophomore in high school, but I had definitely I came of age in the era of Toonami introducing anime to the greater population of the United States, and so as a young child, I was obsessed with Dragon Ball Z, Gundam Wing. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I'm sorry it's Wing and not anything better.
Yeah,
but
I
that's
know.
just all we got back then. And
Yeah.
Pokemon, because like the big three, essentially, and
Mhm.
Sailor Moon.
Mhm.
But I didn't really know more beyond that. I didn't know what anime was. I'm pretty sure I pronounced it anime. But I was just like,
That's
I
awesome.
can. I remember one loving all of those shows, but also really loving stuff like Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger. And I remember distinctly looking at the box of Chrono Trigger and looking at Dragon Ball Z and being like, why does this look so similar? And for those who don't know, it's because it's all drawn by the same guy, Akira Toriyama. And I just, there was something about me innately that I was like, I think I like all of this stuff. I don't really know why, but I just think it's cool. And from then on, I just latched on anything that was anime adjacent, despite my understanding being anime. So one day, my buddy in elementary school, this is all the way back as a child, he let me borrow, because he knew I was into Dragon Ball Z, his anime magazine. And one of the first things on the cover was unpacking the cool hot new show from Japan that was hitting Sunco store shelves, was Evangelion. And I remember being really taken aback because I grew up in a very uh, pretty rigid, strict Protestant upbringing. And so seeing a lot of things described, the magazine was described, I don't remember what the magazine's called, unfortunately, but it was describing all of the Judeo-Christian themes or Christian symbolism that was Evangelion. I just remember I feel like I was always on the cusp of getting caught by my parents and getting in trouble for owning something that would have been deemed blasphemous.
Mhm.
For some kids growing up, they're afraid that their parents will catch their porn magazine. For me, it was this anime magazine, because I was like, they can't know that this show is about Eve getting nailed to a cross, and there's angels invading Earth and stuff like that. And I just remember being really like, this is the coolest thing in the world, and I just felt like I was getting away with murder because no one knew I was reading it. But then that I didn't have any money, so I couldn't afford any VHSs. Cut to me in sophomore year, my buddy's like, "Hey, Nick, I have a show I think you might like. Here's my platinum DVD collection of Evangelion." And so my brother and I sat down and we binge watched it before there was an era of binge watching via Netflix. And I think from there, he really liked it and I loved it. And it kind of just became my first exposure to, I think, art cinema to some extent, because after that I watched, episode 25 obviously is the
Mm.
divisive one, but instead of being annoyed about it as a summer, I was just like, this is weird, but it's interesting and I like it. I don't know why I like it, but I just know that there's something going on here that I'm not equipped to understand. And I think that also propelled me towards a career in media and film criticism and video game criticism. And then I devoured everything that I could, involving Gainax, Hideaki Anno, and all the rebuilds and all that jazz. And
Nice.
and of course Utada.
Oh
um,
man.
Speaking of Gynax, have you ever seen gosh, what is
Gunbuster.
Otaku?
Oh,
No. It's the OVA
It's
that
not. Is it FLC?
Video no Otaku. I think
Video
that's the
no
title.
Otaku.
Hmm.
Video.
I'm not familiar, but now I'm looking it up. I'm doing the
Oh,
thing
sorry.
I'm not
It's
supposed to do on a.
Otaku no Video. That's what it's called.
No, but
Yeah.
this looks great. This looks cool.
Okay, so Otaku no Video is basically the story of Gainax, and this was produced by Gainax. This is
Mm.
pre-Ava. This was kind of like just before Ava kind of saved Gainax, basically, and it's pretty interesting. It kind of shows how like the two people, I guess, who created Gainax started off as model crafters or figure crafters, and they were putting
Oh.
together garage kits, and they're like, oh, we can actually just make anime from our like house or our garage, and it kind of shows like their success story of how they became Gainax. It's pretty interesting. I would say it's pretty funny.
Yeah, this rules. I'm gonna absolutely check this down because it is distinctly like 90s anime look, which is a very sacred look in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like everyone has like really pointy chins, and
What a strong lines.
Hmm.
yeah. Okay, so Nick, I think you told us that your favorite episode is episode 4 of the series,
Yes.
and let me go through the other titles of this. Hold on, let me
There's several.
well, several titles. Typing in the chat. So there's several titles to episode 4. The first one is the Japanese title, and it's the Romanized one, which is Ame Nigedashita Go, and then it's Rain After the Escape, which is the original title, and then Hedgehog's Dilemma is title 2, and these are all titles that Ano came up with, um, which is interesting. Like he came up with an English title that's separate from the English translation of the original Japanese title.
Oh.
And then there's the Netflix version of that title, which is Rain After Running Away. So technically, I guess there's 3 titles, which is
Such an
like,
honor thing.
So you can
Such an honor
imagine my
thing.
concern when you guys were like, "Hey, what's your favorite episode?" And I was like, "Cause I love Evangelion, but I am not
Mm.
one of the type of fan who knows the title of every episode." So I did a quick Google search, and I was like, "What's the one where Shinji's on a train leaving because he's afraid he's running away?" And I was like, "Hedgehog's Dilemma." That sounds about right. And then I typed it in, and then I was like, you know what? I should rewatch the episode just to be 100% certain that's the one. And thankfully it is. But I had a slight panic attack where I was like, "Wait, I'm not seeing that on Netflix. What's going on?"
yeah, I mean, it's kind of like Gene said, it is a very Ano thing to just kind of do
Mhm.
things very extra, and
Hmm.
Yeah, give them multiple titles, different
I mean,
titles,
the man didn't have enough budget to make a fully animated episode, so the least we can do is give him a few different titles for each episode, you know?
right? Yeah.
so let me go through with the episode from like memory. So from my understanding is Shinji uh has just fought Sham Shell. I think that's the name of the of that angel that he fought, and in doing so, he accidentally injured Toji's sister. And I believe in this episode, I think Toji has already beaten up Shinji, or he did
Yeah.
it in the episode prior, I think.
Hmm.
So at this point, Shinji is considering leaving Nerve, and I think around this time he kind of befriends Kensuke, and Kensuke is kind of a weird survivalist, and I think he takes Shinji camping. What are your thoughts on Shinji and Kensuke's relationship, Nick? Because that's kind of interesting. They kind of don't really have a relationship again until literally until 3.0 plus 1.0, where
Mhm.
it's like they're in an entirely different universe. So I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's interesting. This episode in particular, I think I paid more attention to the relationship between Kensuke and Shinji, and I think that there's something fascinating about Shinji be as a 14-year-old boy being forced into adulthood because of these wild circumstances beyond anyone's control, where he's forced to grow up. He doesn't have the benefit of going through any sort of maturation. He doesn't know
Yeah,
how to handle any situation. God knows any adult he's with doesn't really know how to handle the situation. So I could only imagine that kind of pressure on a kid. He is essentially a forced grown up, stripped of his childhood. And then I think that's, and he is trying to escape that duty to some extent to, I think, better understand his circumstances surrounding it, but contrast that wonderfully where on his way to find himself or on his trip to just get away from it all, he discovers his classmate Kensuke, who is roughly the same age, who is a child. He's not a Eva
yeah,
pilot, and he is pretending to go to war, essentially. He's doing the thing that all kids do. They
Yeah.
play war with each other. He's playing by himself, which is, one, not too dissimilar from Shinji, but also he is literally making play out of war, which is the thing that Shinji. It is the thing that has forced Shinji to grow up. So I think that there's a beautiful contrast between someone who's a child and wants to be an adult versus someone who's been forced to become an adult and doesn't enjoy the luxury of childhood. And I really enjoy them, like it's like two aliens interacting with each other almost. Like they're not the greatest of friends, but they're intrigued by each other's presence and they seem to get along pretty well. He's one of the few people who doesn't berate Shinji, which is,
Yeah.
I think, a new thing for him.
Yeah, I was going to add too. Wasn't there that line where he tells him like, "Oh, isn't it so great to pilot an Ava?" You're like in the, it's just like, and he's like, "No, not at all."
Nah, bro.
It's the thing that all kids do though, because as a kid or as a sophomore in high school, I watched Ava, and I think there's a reason to get in the robot Shinji's a meme, because one, it is a cool robot. Why wouldn't you want to pilot it? But as you reflect on it, you're like, I don't want to get in that thing. Are you kidding
Yeah.
me? I got to deal with so much bureaucracy. I got to deal with collateral damage. Like, it is, I think, the purest distillation of what that show is very early on. Because, on when Netflix re-released Evangelion on its service, I watched it again just for the sake of doing it and to prepare. Like, I wanted to do the whole meal. I wanted to do the rewatch of the series, rewatch the rebuilds, and then finish it all up with the final movie. But I think upon rewatching it this time, there is a pretty stark like line in the sand that gets drawn, leading up to the episodes where Toji becomes the pilot, and then Toji is basically murked by Shinji's Ava. And I think after that, the series takes on a very different tone. And I think that this episode specifically, the Hedgehog's Dilemma, really foreshadows what the series will eventually become. More internalized, more forcing its audience to, I think, draw comparisons to Shinji's relationship to everyone on screen. And also some pretty, I know that they were under budgetary constraints with not being able to animate a lot. They get a lot of mileage out of static backgrounds in this episode. But just the innate beauty in that too. Like, any other animation producer, any director said, if you're told you don't have the budget to animate something along this line, and I think they got really creative with how they made their background art in this episode. It's very like impressionistic. It's very beautiful without calling too much attention to itself in its simplicity. I think this episode's firing on all cylinders. Plus, I'm a big fan of any like mecha anime or just anime that alludes to a world outside of the main character's world, where we see what movie theaters are like in this world. We see what the subway's like in this world. We see what instead of contrasted to the hyper tech of the Nerve headquarters, we see what the boonies of Tokyo look like in this world, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting that like they go camping, and so it's kind of like that is like the most low tech thing you can possibly see in the show. And I think there's also a line where I think where both the boys kind of tell each other that they grew up without a mom, or they don't have a mom, which is pretty interesting. It does show how Shinji just kind of he did grow up without a mom, but he also didn't grow up with a father either.
Exactly.
That line's pretty interesting because I mean, you always kind of think of his mom as just kind of like this afterthought, or like this person that Shinji never knew, but like, wow, he really didn't know his dad either.
Yeah,
at least
might as well have been dead.
Yeah, basically.
One thing too that just stood out to me, because you called attention to the camping being the most low tech thing you could do. I think this is definitely me reading into it too much, but I think that there is an interesting comparison. I think you can draw a line from Kensuke's portrayal in this, and then his portrayal all the way in 3.0 plus 1.0, because I think the first hour of 3.0 and 1.0 is very very
Just the town, just the little village and everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is like this admiration of reverting back to some sort of like primitive nature for humans that I think
Mhm.
Ano appreciates. I don't know that he fetishizes it, but I think
Yeah,
that he appreciates the simplicity of
Mhm.
outdoor living, and
exactly.
I just think it's super interesting that every time we've seen portrayals of outdoor living, it's very innocent, it's very pure,
Yeah.
and I
I was
like
gonna
that a lot.
I was gonna say you'll know when Ano fetishizes something.
Yeah, he makes it
Yeah,
very, very
yeah.
obvious.
So I think appreciate was the correct term to use right there.
Yeah, so Gene knows this, but I have a theory. I have like a theory that like
Okay.
speaking of fetishes, that Ano is the Quentin Tarantino of
Yeah.
anime. One, they're both like they're like very like they're like the epitome of Gen Xers. They're
Mhm.
edgy. They're obsessed with pop culture.
Yep.
They're both weirdos. And they
Yeah.
both kind of have weird, very specific like things that they fetishize over, at least, and that shows up in their work.
Mhm.
Yeah, and like I
Insert
said, they're
shots
both,
of
they're both
screens.
yeah.
Mhm.
uh I mean, if Tarantino did a mech, if
Mm.
Tarantino directed Evangelion, it would just show Shinji like sitting on one of the Ava's feet.
Oh man.
Like,
Probably
Just riding on top of it.
yeah,
I
just
mean,
he's
yeah.
I
like,
mean, I think you're half joking, but I do think of Quentin Tarantino as an otaku. Like,
Mhm. Pretty
absolutely,
much.
he's just a big dork for movies, which I can
yeah,
appreciate. Like,
Yeah.
I do think that it. I don't think you necessarily need to be an otaku to be someone who can drive the creative vision for a show, but I think it certainly helps when you have
yeah.
Yeah.
appreciation for everything that a
You,
medium can offer.
you know
Because
the lore.
yeah, exactly. Plus, no one's gonna know this weird callback to some obscure thing that no one's seen except for you. So why not try and get away with it?
Yeah. I was gonna say, did you guys hear one of the reasons why he didn't do that Star Trek movie?
No,
Why?
what was it?
Apparently, it was like J.J. Abrams had to sit down and explain like to him the Kelvin universe. He didn't
Oh,
understand why it wasn't like the regular Star Trek universe. Like he didn't
yeah.
understand like how the parallel worlds work. Like he had no understanding of it. And he kept like trying to explain to it until he's like, "All right, I'm done."
So he wouldn't have been a fan of the rebuild movies, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Probably not. No, it's
basically.
like, why is this?
But
Did
I
this
don't
happen?
understand. Shinji, what he got congratulated, and now what's happening?
Pretty much, yeah. He's a very non-nuanced person. It seems like.
Wait, you telling me that the first movie is a complete reenactment of the first three episodes? All right. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take it back to the '70s. All right, we're gonna maybe a gritty kind of like a gritty. Okay, I'll stop. That's
Yeah,
I mean, it's a good voice. You
it's a
really
good
nailed.
Tarantino.
You really nailed
So,
the Tarantino.
someone asked me this morning, like, would you rather have his voice or like his appearance? And like his voice all the way because he's not the most attractive person.
I'm a big fan of the voice.
Yeah, I like
yeah.
his voice a lot better.
Okay, so also other things in this episode, I believe um Shinji he finally tells Masato that he doesn't want to pilot the Eva anymore.
Mhm.
And she tells Gendo says, well, whatever. I'll just have Ray do it. We'll have to configure the unit one for her to pilot it. And I think Shinji leaves. And at this moment you find out how much people actually care about Shinji because um or sorry, yeah, I guess they say it's sad that Shinji's leaving. And they tell him that with him gone, we might have to vacate Tokyo 2. You're in Tokyo 2, right? Or Tokyo 3? I don't remember.
Yeah, I believe it's three.
Tokyo
I
3.
think it's. I'm pretty sure it's 3.
Yeah, so they're basically saying like well, eventually we'll have to leave Tokyo 3 because I don't think there's no one.
Yeah,
We
we
don't have a
lost.
chance. Yeah, and so Shinji's like, and I guess this is the Hedgehog's dilemma. I'm guessing. Do any of you
Hmm.
know off the top of your head what the actual term Hedgehog's dilemma means?
Just
Doesn't that mean like hurting someone the closer you
yeah,
get to them?
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah.
So like I
So
do think it's Shinji afraid to make friends because, you know, when
Just
he
gonna get
does, he
hurt.
ends up stepping on their little sisters with a giant robot, you
yeah,
know?
but it's something he has to do, and I guess like they said, I mean, they will have to eventually vacate Tokyo 3 if he doesn't pilot the Ava. So the episode ends, I believe, with Shinji. He's at the train station. He doesn't leave. Misato goes to go find him, and I think she takes him home, and he's just like, "I'm home" or whatever. I'm guessing he says Tadaima.
Yeah,
Uh,
he does the famous Tadaima quietly
yeah,
to himself. Uh, Real quick, I love this sequence of Shinji trying to like getting to take the train where the G-men are taking him back
yeah,
onto the subway, and then he breaks free from them and tells Toji and Kensuke how much he despises himself for behaving the way he does. And there's this beautiful moment where if you're watching for the first time, you're like, so is he gonna get on the train? Like, is this show over? Like,
Yeah.
obviously, if you don't know it at the time, like this is a very real ending. But I just love how this entire sequence of events is mostly silent, save for the occasional hum of the train in the distance
Mhm.
and a a pop song that I can't place, but I love that it's like underscoring all of this melodrama on screen. That
Yeah.
there's like this
yeah.
J-pop playing that is it's bopping, it's banging, but it's just slightly under. It's in universe. It is what is it? Not I can't think of the word right now. How embarrassing! But the music's in the show, and then it
Yeah.
comes in a
Oh,
diegetic. There you go.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
definitely
yeah.
it's diegetic music. It's playing in the subway station, and I just love that it's, you know, something so cheerful and poppy that is underscoring something that is very sad. It's very
Beautiful
good.
contrast. For
Definitely,
sure.
yeah. I mean, like what's happening here is like beautiful filmmaking, all right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
you got a Robert Altman style, boom, 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 boom. All these sequences are happening, all right? And
You
we got a
think-
pop song. It's Bob Seger's "Night Moves" playing, and all right. And Shinji, you think he's gonna get on? You think he's gonna get on, all right? But he's
You think-
not. But he's not.
Do you think he's watched the anime?
Wait, what?
Do you think Tarantino has watched Evangelion at some point?
Oh,
Was on his radar?
I'm pretty sure he has.
I
Okay.
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I
It's
mean,
such
but
a
like
yeah.
talking sequence of events, I'd hate to take it back a little, but I do really like. I think again upon rewatch, one thing that I know resonated with me in this episode is how they managed to convey the passage of time in a way that I think is super elegant, especially for a '90s era anime. Ava was like what 94, right? 94
95.
95.
Yeah.
The sequence that shows just how far Shinji is getting away from Tokyo 3, where it is bookended by his recorder, and it's starting at track 1 and it ends up at track 26. So opening of the montage is track 1 playing, and then it's him aboard a crowded train, and then over time people start disappearing from there. It's all static. It's done very cheaply but effectively. You see people fade out of existence just to show how far Shinji's getting away, and then of course the sequence ends with a beautiful matching bookmark of his recorder finishing, and it starts back from 26 and now reversing. So he has gone through every track on his tape player, and he's just gone a very long distance, which is, I think, super cool.
Yeah. Beautiful scene.
I'm going through the director of this episode. His name is Tsuyoshi Kaga, and he also did the episode Magma Diver, which is pretty cool. But he also did something. It's called Story of the Trap Family. It's basically, I think it's the Sound of Music anime adaptation from 1991.
Oh, really?
He did something called My Daddy Long Legs.
That sounds like familiar.
He did
My
something
Daddy
called
Long
Little
Legs.
Women 2, which I'm guessing is a sequel to the
What?
the classic novel Little Women.
Well, there's no story there. One of the
Wow.
dead sisters comes back, I guess.
Is Bob Odenkirk coming back for Little Women too?
Yeah, God, I hope so.
He
Who
did.
doesn't love that movie? What a nice movie. I'm gonna go off on a tangent, but I love that Little Women.
The Adventures of Peter
My
Pan.
Little Women.
Anyway, so I just wanted to see if he did anything like a feature film, because yeah, like the way that you're talking about this episode, it does seem very cinematic. And I mean, trains are kind of like the classic it's like that classic studio film way of romanticizing someone leaving. I mean, someone running after the
Racing,
train.
something like they're going two different directions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like the episode of The Simpsons when Dustin Hoffman plays.
Mr.
Lisa's.
Bergstrom.
And he's leaving on a train, and she's running after him, and it's all very dramatic. But Shinji chooses not to do that because he's a wussy and he stays.
I got to admit, I've watched one season of The Simpsons only when it hit Disney Plus. I'm turning in my nerd card now. I'm trying. But everyone's always like, remember that? It's like that Simpsons episode. I'm like,
I'm guessing. Have you seen more Futurama? I'm guessing.
Definitely more Futurama.
Okay.
God, let it die.
I'm not a Simpsons otaku. I'm just I'm only otaku. Anime.
I have a comic called Bart Kira, and it's an adaptation of Akira, drawn by several different artists.
I'm looking it up now, and this is incredible.
Wow, is Milhouse great too?
I don't remember because it's been a while. I think it came out 2015. I went to the gallery opening, or not gallery opening, but it was on sale at Gallery Nucleus back in 2015. I picked it up there.
Nice. I love that place. That's a great.
I'll let you borrow it if I find it, because I know I have 2 copies somewhere around my parents' place, probably.
Amazing. You could read. Wow. Okay, sorry, I'm getting distracted, but this is very good.
So I guess I have 2 more things to ask. Why is it your favorite episode?
I think, one, I don't think anyone's ever really asked me what my favorite Ava episode is. So whenever I get a question of what's your favorite X thing, I try to take the subconscious approach of what is my knee-jerk response, and then I try and figure out why that was my response. And I think that was this one, primarily because of the imagery I associate with it. When I first think of this episode, I'm reminded of Shinji in the movie theater looking at the lives of people around him, and also the things he isn't allowed to have, like the couple that is kissing in the movie theater. I think to some extent he wants that for his own life, but he's not allowed to have it. I think of Shinji on the train leaving the metropolitan Tokyo 3 and abandoning it for the countryside, getting away from all the noise. And I'm reminded of the cicadas screaming at him, and I am reminded of the G-men emerging from the fog to take Shinji home. And so I think that those just images burn themselves into my brain, and I'm like, man, that's a pretty good episode.
Yeah, it is a very it's an episode where you do see a lot of growth in Shinji's character, and I believe this episode was added in because I just read this earlier. It was added in by Ano, and it wasn't actually supposed to be an episode. It was supposed to go episode 3 and then episode 5. Well, I mean, episode 5 would have been episode 4, but he wanted more time. He wanted like a sort of like a gap between Shinji and the events of episode 5 to take place. So he added episode 4, and this is why 1, Ano doesn't direct it. 2, Ano actually didn't write this episode. It's co-written, or maybe mostly written by let's see who the writer is of this episode. So this episode is written by Akio Satsukawa, and I believe so he doesn't even have a writing credit on this episode, which is interesting.
It is, as the kids say, a vibe of an episode.
Yeah, it's a vibe.
But it does feel like something that like in any other anime it'd be an episode that you cut just for the sake of like we don't need to see what happens in between the giant robot
Yeah.
battle, right? We
Or
just go to the next one.
it'd
But
be
I think that's what,
considered a filler, right?
exactly. And I
Yeah.
think, as a kid, if you're watching this for the first time, you're like, I don't care about any of this. I just want to see
Yeah.
the cool fights, which I think is also a totally fine view. But I think that, I do think that if you like Evangelion, I think you don't like it just because the robots are cool and just because the fights are sick. I think it is because you are there for just the just overall like introspection plus the cool robots.
Yeah. And before I ask the last question, for some reason this popped in my head. And it's completely unrelated to anything we've been talking about. I think because of all the different ways I was pronouncing Evangelion, but I knew a guy in college. His name was RJ. He was just a white guy that was obsessed. He was a weeb, basically obsessed with Japanese culture. And he would always pronounce anime like he would overpronounce things. So I asked him if he's ever seen Evangelion, and he goes, "Which one is that?" And he goes, "Oh yes, Neon Genesis Evangelion," and he said it exactly like that. He over articulated it, and in my head, I just cringe every single time I think about that moment. He was a nice guy though, so good. Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Maybe that's just how he always heard it.
Yeah, it's better than Robin Williams butchering the name in One Hour
Evangelion.
Photo.
Is that what he says?
I think yeah.
And he says it's one of the good guys. Excuse me, Robin Williams.
Yeah. One of the angels.
That's a mass-produced Ava that is responsible single-handedly for killing Asuka. How dare you?
So,
I definitely said Evangelion when I was a child because evangelical, evangelist. I was like, that's the word. so I give it a pass.
This dude, he was apparently the reason why he knew so much about anime at the time. This is like 2006. He apparently was a view tester or something, or I don't know what you call it, but a focus group tester for ADV, the distribution company that originally put out Gainax's work in the 90s. And so he would go into their office, watch hours of like anime. That's why he would overpronounce things. But yeah, it was just so funny to me, like that he would go from just like California accent, dude, just like, oh, you mean like, and then he would jump into like a very like put on almost Japanese accent, and it was just kind of funny to me. But anyway, so my last question, and this does relate to what I was talking about because this is the most cringiest question you can ask any Ava fan, and this is just coming from a point of admiration. It's not anything else, so don't think of it as weird or creepy because we're all men in our 30s. So the very last question is, who is best girl?
I think I am a big fan of Rei. The reason why I like Rei is I've always been a sucker for the quiet types. I just think I admire the people who don't say a lot because when they do speak, it's worth listening to. Plus, I'm a huge sucker for whenever a character has like bandages integrated into their design. Whenever you have like bandages covering an eye, you have a stray bandage over your forehead. I'm like, this is the coolest looking character ever. Also, I've always. I think when I first saw Rei, she reminded me of like a cyborg because she was always like wounded and stuff like that. Plus the plug suit. So I was just like, oh, this is a cool looking character that is like part machine, part human. Obviously not the case, but that was just like my 10-year-old self like, oh, that's a cool looking character.
Yeah.
One of the funniest moments in 3.0 plus 1.0 is when they're we found you some clothes, and it's just her schoolgirl outfit.
Her character, right? Yeah, it was her exact character model.
It's like Bart Simpson finding his exact outfit randomly in the streets.
I feel like that was a gag at some point.
It is a gag.
It absolutely is. But I mean, but that sort of thing is what I think makes like. I think you don't get a moment like that if you don't have an otaku that is leading the creative direction of your
Yeah.
show, because he's a dude who was unabashedly an otaku, later became ashamed of his otakuhood, and then learned to re-embrace his otakuhood as an adult and reevaluate it. And I think that's the beauty of something like Evangelion. I like that there, as a kid, the thing that drew me in was the Christian symbolism, because I was like, ooh, this is dangerous, this is exciting. Come to find out, it's just there because it really looks cool, and there's nothing really, there's really no meaning to any of the Judeo-Christian stuff.
Yeah.
But the fact that I brought that to the table is what made it interesting. It's the perfect answer. I think Evangelion's the perfect thing to both negate and embrace death of the author, which I think is cool.
One thing we talked about earlier was that shared a hero universe that I guess Anno is going to create, along with what Shin Kamen Rider, Shin Ultraman, Shin Godzilla, and I guess now Eva. I guess we can all agree. I mean, I don't know. There's nothing to spoil because the movie's been out for a long time. But like, I think the movie does confirm that Rebuild is technically not an alternate universe, but it is sort of a multiverse situation going on with Neon Genesis Evangelion. Is that we can all agree on that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I think at the end they kind of
so.
Yeah, they do kind of imply that, I think there was a part where Shinji and Rei are in front of they're inside of a TV, or sorry, like a soundstage. So I guess it implies that they are aware that they're sort of actors in a sort of production, which gets super meta at that point. But I guess it's confirmed at that point that like Neon Genesis is complementary to Rebuild and not, what would be the opposite of complementary?
It doesn't I think they're all canon, and I think that one doesn't
Yeah.
detract from the other.
Yeah.
I think that if you want them to exist in a continuity, they can. If you don't, they also can. But I think ultimately what my takeaway from the final movie was, Anno doesn't really care. It's very much just literally a stage for people to grow. And again, my favorite takeaway from the new movie was, as a child, you think that your shortcomings, the things that you're afraid of, the things that you're scared of about yourself, are gonna all come to fruition in some climactic battle between good versus evil that is larger than life. When I think that in reality, it really is just you learning how to hug your problem. It is, in this instance, it is Shinji learning how to show his affection for his father and vice versa, as opposed to a one-on-one battle to the death, a la like Metal Gear Rising. Like, it's not going to be bombastic. It's, I think life's problems are solved in quiet moments, not giant robot battles. And I think that's the point of the final movie being on that sound stage. It is all literally set dressing for more important themes.
That's no, I mean that's very insightful. Because I
That's
think
my read anyway.
Yeah.
It's a very good take. I certainly was getting some of those thoughts as well. Just, the fact that they're so evenly matched in that final battle. So yeah.
I would also say that life's problems can also be solved on podcasts, which is why segue into our next section. So basically, is there anything in your life, Nick, that you are learning to accept, or I guess trying to grow within yourself, or something you're just trying to love about yourself?
Yeah, of course. I mean, who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
I think for me, the big thing that I've always dealt with to some extent, and I've just assumed everyone was this way, but maybe that's the case, maybe it's not. But I've always had some pretty serious problems with, I think, anxiety. Just like, I know probably 90% of the people are like, do you want to meet my friend that you've never met before? And everyone's like, not really. But like, I think for me personally, it's very much like a detrimental thing, because I do work as a video producer. I'm often a technical director or a director. So my job often becomes learning, or basically talking to large groups of people, telling them what to do, and trying to articulate what my goal is for whatever project. And for someone with anxiety, I think that's I mean, no, that's a difficult thing whether you have anxiety or not. But as someone who actively doesn't like talking to new people, not because I don't like people, but because I'm just uncomfortable with breaking out of my small little shell, it's a thing I've learned to deal with as a result. But I think that oddly enough, this is a thing I didn't know about until I rewatched this episode. But there is a moment that is a perfect encapsulation of my anxiety and my like experiences with it in this episode of Hedgehog's Dilemma, where Shinji is on the outskirts and the cicadas are roaring their loudest and the screen's all red and it's Shinji kind of covering his ears and running, and then it all breaks and like the silence, or the deafening roar of the silence, that's how I want to read it, is broken when he makes his way out. And I just feel like that is a good visual portrayal of anxiety in a way. I'm like, that is how I feel when I'm a little overwhelmed with life. And yeah, it's a thing that, again, like going back to the 3.0 1.0 thing, it's a thing that I thought would be solved in a giant battle where I get to climb inside of a robot and fight an evil manifestation of my anxiety. But it really is just a thing that I have learned that I am going to have to deal with for the rest of my life. That's okay. I just need to learn that I can use the anxiety to my benefit as opposed to be afraid of it and letting it control me. I think the anxiety forces me to, I think quicker on my feet as a result. And I've, oddly enough, now I feel like I'm on a tangent, but one thing that I really love about my job in particular, and just production in general, is the right here, right now nature of production, especially live production, where if you mess something up, the result of that error will be seen by whoever's watching, which I like that there is this present danger. I think that does contradict my anxiety, because I think that it is very anxiety inducing, but it's also very fun to live in that kind of danger mode. And I think that my anxiety as a result helps me try and see potential errors and hopefully allow me to plan in advance, I guess, is maybe the best way I can use my anxiety. And it's going to be with me forever for the rest of my life, but I think that's okay. And I think that is a cool, okay thing for people to have to deal with, as opposed to whatever else. I do think that anxiety sucks, but it can be a thing that you learn to live with.
Would you say it's sort of like your superpower?
Yeah, for lack of a better way of putting it. Yeah, I think that it is a thing that allows me to plan, and in planning I can hopefully try and my planning in advance is my way, I guess, of coping with being worried about something failing. And you know what? Even if it does, at the end of the day, I do sit down and think, like, why am I afraid of this thing? Why? What is it that is giving me anxiety? Sure, messing up, but it's not like I'm going to get shot in the head because I messed up. Like, I'm still going to be alive. I'm still going to wake up tomorrow morning and continue doing my job. Or even, worst case scenario, if I lost my job, I'm still going to wake up the next day and I'm still going to continue living my life. I'm still going to be me. So, I mean, what is the worst that could happen? And it really, nothing.
Yeah, it's just playing against yourself,
So this podcast, even though we're only on the 4th episode, but we've had a history of having most of our guests having worked in film and or TV production, and Gene also working in the film industry. Gene, what are your thoughts on Nick's experiences? And I mean, you being an assistant editor right now on G4, making your own short films and editing on. You've done what? I think you worked on 2 films for Asylum, I believe.
Like 4.
4.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
So that's my start. Yeah, way back when. But no, I'm I see a lot of commonplace, because it's like, get some anxiety just with deadlines, or kind of the rush nature of just film or especially live TV, where you're just really trying to beat a day and date. So it's just, you definitely have to turn it into like, I wouldn't say your strength, but certainly something to learn how to like cope with and something to learn to like live with. It will never completely go away. I would.
Yeah, and I think that's what like sure to some extent Ava taught me, but just overall it's like it it's not inherently a bad thing. You just gotta make sure it doesn't control your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's true. I think well, what was one of the famous screenshots that everyone shares is like just take care of yourself. I think I forgot who. I think Misato says it to someone. Someone says it to Ray. I don't remember.
Mhm.
I think Misato says it to Ritsuko. Maybe Ritsuko.
I
Maybe
think
I don't
so.
know.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds
But she
about
basically
right.
just says take care of yourself. Or no, sorry, Misato says it to Shinji. That's the
Mhm.
most obvious. That's the most obvious interaction I can think of. But yeah, she just tells him to just take care of yourself because you're the only one that really can. And it's like, yeah, I mean, people may be living with anxiety, depression, or any type of mental health illness or any type of mental health condition. At the end of the day, like sometimes all you can do is cope. Um, you know, sometimes people say like, "Oh, like I wish there was a cure," and there's not always a cure to any type of mental health illness or sorry, mental illness or mental health condition or anything. All you can do really sometimes is cope, and sometimes, by coping, you just kind of learn to accept certain things about yourself, whether it's directly related to whatever it is you may be living with. But and I think it's cool that some people say like, I'm not suffering from depression. I'm just living with depression. And in the end, you really do have to just take care of yourself because no one else will. And it's you have your own. Basically, you're the only one that knows yourself truly. And like Shinji was basically worrying about whether or not people loved him or whether or not his father loved him or if Asuka loved him back or if Ray loved him. Um, Meanwhile, juggling all these emotions, but did he did he truly love himself? And when he finally learned that and learned to accept all this love about himself, it's kind of too late. But at least as we know it in Neon Genesis. Um, so I don't know. It's just it's interesting that like Nick, like one thing that we do ask: Are you making any steps? Are you taking any steps to like maybe attempting progress or any way you can help yourself in terms of like learning about your anxiety or but it looks like you kind of already have a firm grasp on it. It doesn't seem like
I mean,
um
I'd like to think I do. I mean, I'm sure everyone, everyone who struggles with something similar has moments where it does get the best of them. And I think it's just like, you can't win every battle. That's all right. I think
yeah.
as long as you don't give up, you keep the war going. Yeah, you can't give up. There you go. Yeah, I think if there was something I could do to I think be a little more proactive. Maybe I should start looking at booking some sort of like someone to talk to professionally, just because I hear that's a
Yeah.
good thing to do in general, whether you believe you have any issues or not.
Yeah.
It's something that is of value, and maybe in doing so you can. Maybe who knows? Maybe I'm a dummy for thinking about it the way I am, and maybe I was like, nah, dude, here, let me help you out. I got the right answer. Probably not the healthiest way of looking at it, but I don't know. I'm if someone was like, I can get rid of it forever, I'd be like, oh, interesting. But I think for the most part, I'm pretty chill with it.
Yeah. And sometimes all these things make they kind of make up who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And like Nick said, anyone out there like thinking about going to therapy, the answer is always you probably could benefit it, whether or not you're living with any type of condition. Think about it like this: like if if you went to like a health spa, you wouldn't go just because you're sick. Sometimes you want to go just because you want to feel you want to feel better that day, or you want to feel better for the weekend. So you can probably think about going to therapy the same way. I mean, you can always feel better. You can always feel better than you do now. So if anyone out there thinks of, is questioning about whether or not to go to therapy, then, just give it a try. But Gene and I are not therapists. We're just talking about anime here. So.
Yeah, I would agree with both of those statements. So,
okay, so let me see. I mean, we kind of covered most of basically this segment. So I guess do you have any final thoughts about anything Evangelion, about anxiety, about whether or not Tarantino has seen Evangelion, if you think he would have any of the characters, sitting on a foot or anything?
He would definitely put Asuka on the foot.
Oh god,
for sure.
Yeah.
That would be actually her grand appearance instead of her Eva unit on top of a ship covered in a cloak.
Yeah.
It would just be one giant robot foot.
Mm.
No, I think my favorite thing about Evangelion, just overall, that it is just this weird. I take that back. It's not weird. I think that it is very deliberate. I think that it was a lot of people trying to, not only Anno, but also just a production company trying to figure out how to make something that they might like. And I think that in doing so, you end up doing unusual things, stuff that is surreal, stuff that is, I think, closer to like art house cinema to some extent. And I don't think that it was planned that way. I don't think that Anno is turning his glasses up at anyone saying, "Oh, you just don't understand me." I don't think he doesn't strike me as that type of dude. He just, both him and just all the people that I've seen work alongside him in the documentaries that are on Amazon Prime, they all just seem like a ragtag group of people who love what they do and try and figure out how to convey, how to tell a story. And at the end of the day, if you can make a surreal piece of cinema that is about giant robots, introspection, and the ultimate takeaway, at least for End of Evangelion, is that, hey, sometimes meeting people and making friends hurts, but it's still worth it. And that was like the thing that, as a high school student, when I watched End of Eva, I was like, I don't like meeting people because I'm afraid, but when you do make that connection, it makes all that fear worth it. Like that was the takeaway I took from the End of Evangelion, the end of Evangelion.
Yeah.
Just like, human contact is pain, but when it isn't, it's worth it. Even if it's a tiny, like, if only you get a good thing from pain a little bit, life is still worth living. Like that was like my takeaway from it. And then 3.0 plus 1.0, I probably need to watch like 2 more times to really get the firm grasp.
Don't we all?
But ultimately, I was like, yeah, this is good. And then I rocked the night away to that Utada track.
Yeah.
Oh, at the end?
Yeah. One Last Kiss. So good.
That one slaps, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, same with the Beautiful World from the first rebuild.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
One Last Kiss is the one that goes like simple and clean.
Utada is a person who is so formative with the impact they've had on all the weird media in my life that I think are very indicative of me as a person, of like, I love me the melodrama, man. I love me melodramatic Kingdom Hearts. I love the melodrama in Evangelion. Like, it's just, I think it's my favorite type of anime is just the melodrama. People say melodrama's bad. No, melodrama's fantastic.
Who loves melodrama is Tarantino.
Oh god.
He once said he wants to do a Douglas Sirk style 50s melodrama, but not in English. He wants to film it in French or something.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Anyway, Gene, do you have any final thoughts before we completely wrap up?
For this episode or just in general?
It's thoughts about Ava, being back after a long break since the last time we
Oh,
recorded.
yeah, for sure. I felt I was going to bring up the well, first for mental health. I love because just like have more appreciation for podcasting after my little break during the winter. So nice and good to have it back. But I was going to bring up the Shin universe. That'll be
Oh, that's right.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ano's
Um,
doing his.
I want a cool Godzilla Ava 1 unit.
Mhm.
yeah.
I've also never watched ever in my life any Ultraman or Kamen Rider. So
Okay.
like I am both excited because of I watched that trailer for the Ano Kamen Rider and I was like,
Looks
homie's
sick.
on a motorcycle, and I was like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I didn't understand because I just assumed that it would be bombastic like Shin Godzilla. But when I was like, relatively mundane, it looks like what I imagine like a Sentai style like
Yeah.
show would
Super
be.
Sentai.
But when I saw it, I was like, wait, that means that he knows what he's doing because I don't
Mhm.
understand it. It's not bombastic in the way I do, which means that he kind of knows what's up. So I'm like, I trust him. So now that has inspired me. Like, I'm gonna go watch Kamen Rider. I've started watching Ultra Q. I know it's not really
Okay.
related to Ultraman, but I've heard it's a really cool start to that
Yeah.
entire thing. But yeah, I'm excited to see Shin Ultraman and Shin Kamen Rider, or just
And
Kamen Rider.
yeah, and Evangelion.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think
just
so far. I think Ano has worked on. So he's worked on Macross. He's worked on Godzilla, Ultraman, Kamen Rider, of course, Ava. The only thing he hasn't technically worked on is Gundam, and I think if he does do Gundam, he's kind of like he's done more than J.J. Abrams. He's literally
yeah,
touched,
out
because we were
Abramson.
saying how like he is kind of like the Abrams of Japan right now, and like Japan is letting him just, or I
Do
guess
yeah.
they're letting him like take charge of all the major like geek
Mm-hmm.
IPs.
Good for him, man. Good for him. I
But
want to
like
see more
I
Ano.
think the difference between him and Abrams is the projects they get attached to, though, because Abrams gets attached to the multi like the $600 million
Yeah,
budget movies,
Yeah,
whereas homie wants to make a Kamen Rider thing, which is
yeah,
like,
yeah,
granted, I'm not an expert on Kamen Rider, but I'm pretty sure that show is historically pretty cheap.
yeah.
right.
It's a kids hero show, so
Yeah.
the
Well,
charm in it is that it looks kind of cheesy.
Exactly,
Pretty
which
much.
is
yeah.
interesting. Like, that's cool.
It's in the DNA of the show. I was gonna
Mm-hmm.
say for Ano, the difference too is also like he's interested and he's a fan of these things. Where I think like JJ wasn't a fan of Star Trek before he did the movie, and you could kind of maybe tell in maybe a few of those movies. Star Trek.
Ano's interested in answers too, not just the
True.
Mystery
not just the
boxes.
question. Yeah, just
Yeah, mystery
not the
box.
question, which I love. He's good at theme. I appreciate that.
Hmm.
Also, which Macross did he do?
He did Macross.
I've only ever seen one
Let's see.
Macross thing, and it's "Do You Remember Love?"
Mm.
That movie, which ruled. But I was just like overwhelmed. I was like, which one do I watch next?
Yeah.
It's like the Gundam dilemma.
Yeah. I've only seen Robotech, so I'm just so unequipped.
He worked on Macross Plus.
Got it.
And I
See, I'm
believe
gonna have
I
to
think
watch
that's
that.
the one that's not technically considered canon.
Mm.
But I don't remember. But
It's canon to me.
it's canon to me.
It's real to
goddammit.
me, damn it. Okay, I hate to throw us on another tangent,
Mhm.
but did you know that he's married to a mangaka,
Yeah.
Ano?
Um.
she has a manga that's about living with Ano.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I think me and Gene were we talking about this?
I don't
Gene?
think so. This is like first news to me because yeah, that would be like I want to read that manga now and see
Gene
how
told
fucking
me
weird he is.
She
when,
talks about like how he has like when they were engaged that he was like hyping up that he was getting a custom fitted Kamen Rider outfit and that he measures everything based on the measurements of Kamen Rider's bike.
Wow.
Yeah.
God damn. I was gonna say, does it mention Miyazaki at his wedding, where it's like he's
Yes.
telling a story? It's like how he
He smelled.
smells.
how he smelled and he didn't have shoes on or something, like when he was asleep in the office. If you haven't, highly recommend the two-part documentary on Amazon
I haven't seen
Prime.
it yet.
That is just basically chronicling the making of the final Ava movie. It is.
It's so interesting. I was enjoying it because it goes into like, God, it's like they started in like 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 2018,
and then it's like chronicling production during COVID.
Yeah,
all that stuff, and just like you can tell what kind of a. It's uncomfortable because Anno in a lot of ways reflects some of my tendencies as a creative of like, I'll just do it myself. And then he kind of just like picks up a camera, is like, we're going to shoot it like this. And it's just like, everyone's like, this isn't how okay, well, fine. And I'm just like, oh, I don't like what I'm seeing.
I think it's
There's a funny story in there's a documentary on Miyazaki. I don't know if you've seen that one. There was one on Netflix where Miyazaki is he's in the studio doing
Dream of Madness, right? Kingdom of Dreams and Madness.
I'm not sure. I know because I know there's multiple. No, it's okay. There's multiple docs on Miyazaki, but this one he's talking specifically about. Well, he's in the studio recording. He's doing voiceovers for The Wind Rises, or he's directing. And I don't remember. He's just like, he's like, you know who'd be perfect for this part? He's like, Ano-san. Like, what? What do you mean? He's like, yeah, Hideaki Anno. And like, okay, yeah, I'll ask him if he wants to do it. And he's like, Anno just comes in and just voice records his random character.
He's getting roasted the entire time. Yeah, he doesn't even know it. It's just like, jeez.
What is it? What did they tell him? Like, I haven't seen it.
He was just like, it's because Miyazaki's directing him to some extent, but it's also not on mic when he's doing. He goes, he said that like a dummy. Like, let's try that again. Like, he's just absolutely destroying the guy. But then when they talk, he's just like, fantastic work.
It's funny because like, and I don't want to bring down any other feature film animators, but like, even though like Miyazaki treats Anno like a dumb little brother, like Makoto Shinkai and like Mamoru Hosoda, they would love to be in Anno's position. Like, imagine it's like being taken under the wing of like Walt Disney or something. It's like insane.
If you're getting roasted by the Godfather of anime, like you probably did well for yourself in your creative endeavors. I do also like that they are very similar in that they kind of don't like themselves when they're creating something. Throughout that documentary that was chronicling the final movie of Ava, Anno is just like, don't film me, film everyone else. They're actually doing stuff and I'm just here taking up space. And then he goes, and he's just always like, he's the type that is always giving direction. Like even for the documentary crew, he was just like, don't film me, this is boring, go film some rain, go film some exterior shots, there's a hurricane right now, it'll look really cool. And it was just like, oh my gosh, this guy he's focusing on too many projects at once.
Speaking of Makoto and Mamoru, if you haven't seen it yet, go check out Makoto's Weathering with You and also Mamoru's most recent Belle. I've seen Belle 3 times.
I haven't seen Belle yet. I need to see
it. I haven't seen Belle. I don't know. Where can I watch Belle?
It was in theaters. Yeah, it's in theaters. I'm sure like 1, 2, 3 movies has it, but it's definitely it's good to probably see it in the theater. I'll have to check it out soon.
I gotta revisit Shinkai's work. He also did Boy and the Beast, right?
That was Mamoru's film.
Oh yeah. Mamoru Hosoda. Hosoda is the one where I'm like, I don't know that I like your movies. I do like Summer Wars.
Yeah, Summer Wars is amazing.
Summer Wars
because I'm a weeb,
Yeah, well, no, Summer Wars is great because it's just his segment in Digimon.
Yes, that's like exactly what it is.
He's like, I like
the best part of the Digimon movie.
Yeah, it was because those other 2 segments are not very good.
Yeah, kind of wah.
Yeah,
but I do like Shinkai because I did like Weathering with You.
Weathering with You is amazing. On that one.
Did he also do Your Name? Right?
Shinkai? Yeah, he did Your Name. Yeah. Which is being remade or something by J.J.
Abrams.
Oh no!
I've never seen I don't know if we'll see that, but like
one thing about Belle, it's kind of like his third update to the Digimon story.
Yeah.
So like,
I'm in.
Well, I was gonna say it's like the Digimon thing. It's like takes from War Games, the '80s movie with Matthew Broderick. So it's like a copy of a copy. It's like
But like
Xerox.
it is. Funnily enough, like it's easy to make fun of the guy for making basically the same movie multiple times, but like, how do you not make a movie about the oppressive presence of technology in day to day
Yeah.
life?
Yeah.
Like that just feels as natural as making a movie about two dudes who have beef in real life. It's just
Yeah.
like this is just the thing that you do now.
Yeah.
I can't wait for Kanye West and Pete Davidson, the anime
Oh
feature
man.
film.
I can't wait for that because it's like
That's Genius
so
Part
many
Two.
fucking good memes. So many fucking
Yeah.
good memes. Have you seen the one where it's like the Kanye and Pete Davidson beef, and it's like they're Dingleberg and like Timmy's dad from like Fairly Odd Parents.
Oh,
Because apparently Pete Davidson, like, he doesn't have like any social media. He's not really like in the loop, and he's just
yeah.
like, people are telling him this, like, hey, he made this, and he's just kind of laughing about it. And he apparently just liked the diss track about himself, where he's like, oh, this is pretty good. It's a
I would
good
be
song.
honored if someone made a diss track about me.
Yeah.
It's like the Ano thing. Like that means I did
Mhm.
something right.
All right, so I guess we get to the part where I want to ask if any of you. I guess we'll start with Gene because I know you came out with something pretty recently. Do you have anything you want to plug?
Oh yeah, sure. Finishing my short film. It's Vera. It's a film that I've worked on the past like 3 years. Just kind of had to start and stop because of COVID, so it's finally being wrapped. Hopefully, have it on some film festivals. And then, if you're interested in any other of my podcast endeavors, check out the Waffle Press podcast.
Awesome. What about you, Nick? I know that Nick is a producer at IGN, so you do some on-screen segments yourself, which I love watching. Is there anything you want to plug?
Right now, really just vibing on the internet. I'm just trying to play video games and read books and watch movies. I'm very excited for Elden Ring. I'm probably gonna spend way too much time doing
Yeah.
that. And then maybe then I'll get back to writing again. Writing some books. I would like to do that again. Otherwise, yeah, just follow me on wherever. I'm at Advent Nick everywhere.
Awesome. All right, and I guess if any of you like chiptune music, my band is working on stuff. We're called Here Between You and Me at HBYM Band. I think that I changed the Twitter account
Used to
to
be
that.
music.
Used to be music, now
Yeah.
it's band because I took out the underscore. It was like HBYM underscore music. So, but yeah, we are working on stuff, and it's not chiptune, or really, it's like chiptune adjacent. It's not 8-bit anymore. So yeah, we'll see
Are
how
you
that
using
goes.
the analog pocket?
Oh no,
Deep cut.
here's the thing. I mean, people would be interested if I would be considering I work at Hyperkin, but yeah,
Oh wait, yeah,
because
you get in trouble.
no. The
The
thing is, they're not
Hyperkin snipers would come out.
yeah, they're not a competitor. We're actually like we're not necessarily friends or like we don't really know them personally, but they're in a different like market than us because their stuff is like super enthusiast. It's ultra high end. The price range is way different than ours. So I would love to have an analog pocket to work on music with because all my friends are doing that, and when I see their stuff, just blasting beats on that thing, it's so amazing.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. But in the meantime, I do like tinkering around with Game Boy stuff at Hyperkin because it
Hell
is
yeah.
great. So anyway, yeah, thanks Nick. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been a long time coming. I know we've had a lot of setbacks just because of scheduling and also because we're still in the pandemic. So
Yeah,
things are
life.
still kind of crazy.
All good. Thank you
But
for
hopefully
having
we
me.
can, yeah, no problem. Hopefully we can have you back.
course.
Maybe we can have you back because you have 2 other episodes that you mentioned
Yeah,
that are
whenever you'd have me.
awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.
Bye.
Let me end the broadcast here.